Hello, Internet. It is I, Malik Aaron, and welcome back to Box Office Recap. So, October 2024. It sucked. That's it. It sucked. It was bad. And it was definitely the worst month I've covered in quite some time, at least since May. But even then, this feels a lot worse than May, because May, nothing that month really screamed like a mega hit. But October had two movies that could have theoretically been mega hits. One merely just did whatever. The other was an absolute catastrophe. And you already know what that movie is. I don't need to tell you what it is. And believe me, I will talk all about it in a little bit. And while October, it did have some success stories, Terrifier 3 being the biggest, it was just so depressing, real depressing. Like all the momentum we had in September, particularly at the beginning of September with Beetlejuice, all that momentum was just gone, wiped away. And it made for a very just sad month. So yeah, let's go over October. So as usual, I'm going to compare my own personal predictions to what actually happened, and let's get started. Oh, boy. Joker, Filet Joker 2, Joker, I Hardly Know Her, the sequel. Wow, I mean, I don't... There's so much to say about this. Because at the beginning of the year, I thought, Joker 2, that should be a hit. Big money hit. Will it be as big as the first? I don't know, but it'll still make a lot of money because that first Joker movie back in 2019, it was a movie that I thought was a weird idea from the get-go, but the trailers it sold me. Those trailers sold me on the movie. When it came out, had a lot of controversy surrounding it. That controversy turned into cash. It broke a ton of records for October. It made $1 billion, the first R-rated movie to do so. Not only that, the movie it won Oscars, particularly for Joaquin Phoenix. You won the Best Actor Oscar. Not to mention, it became a meme gold mine. So, yeah, that Joker movie, it was generally well received by the general public. And so you think, oh, Joker 2, it seems like a great idea. But things went very wrong. Very fucking wrong. It was announced to be a musical, which had me raise an eyebrow because I thought it was a weird choice. But I was willing to give it the benefit of a doubt. Maybe it could be like a different type of musical. Maybe it could be like Cool or something. That's what I thought. And then the trailers I thought looked pretty good. And then I was like, okay, I'm on board with this thing. I think this is going to be a decent flick. Then reviews came out when it premiered at Venice, a month before it released. And the hypes around this movie, slowly but surely, deflated over that month. Once more people knew, what the movie actually was and what was in it, it just turned people off. But anywho, so that's the backstory, the Joker 2. So my personal prediction, a month in advance, I thought this had a shot at beating Joker's record for biggest October weekend. So I'm about to show you right here. Joker is number 1, 96 million. I thought Joker 2 had a shot at making triple digits. It would have been the first October movie to do so, had it done it. Obviously, I thought that was gonna happen because at the time I was thinking, oh, nothing can go wrong with Joker 2. It seemed like a slam dunk financially. But then the word of mouth started to spread, and then those box office projections, they just fell and fell and fell. I think officially it was between 60 and 70, then it dropped to 50. Then 40, and I was like, oh God, what's going on? And then it released to the public. And when I saw it, I should have known something was wrong because it was literally me and one other person there on Thursday night. That should have told me everything. But I saw the movie, and yeah, I'll talk about my thoughts after I do my analysis of its box office. But yeah, beginning of the month, I expected big money. Then, like once the weekend, like this movie was coming out, that weekend arrived, my internal projections dropped dramatically, and so I predicted 40 to 50 mil. I think 40 to 45 mil, and a final total of like 80 to 90 mil. I think that's what I predicted. Turns out those low expectations were just a little too optimistic for this thing. Because, man, this movie, talk about a fall. A fall from grace. A fall from grace that I rarely see with big movies. I mean, let's analyze these numbers. So 7 million preview night, that's not great. Then 20 million opening day. And then Saturday, you probably expect to drop like 20, 30%. This dropped 44%. I looked at that number, I was like, no. What the hell? Like, I never see that ever for like a superhero movie. Even the bad ones, most of the bad ones never drop this hard on a Saturday. And then drop another 45% the next day on Sunday. So literally in the span of 3 days, it dropped more than 2/3. From 20 to 6. And it made well over half of its opening weekend came from Friday, which is a sign, a terrible sign, that this movie's not going to have a long life. And a long life it didn't have, because, I mean, look at this. It's a bloodbath. It's just, ugh. Fell 81%. The biggest drop ever for a comic book movie. It finally beat the record of Steel from the 90s and the Marvels, which, tied. I think that and Steel were like tied for like worst drop ever for a comic book movie. This beat both of them. And then look at these. Just look at that. It just, by the end of the month, it was a memory. Total memory. It's crazy. And ended up making only $58 million opening weekend. That's less than what people projected it would open with, like several weeks in advance. And literally, over 64.6% of its run came from opening weekend. That's not normal. That is not something you see with a big movie like this. Like I've seen front-loaded movies, obviously, but for a big movie like this never happens. Except like, rarely with like some horror movies like Halloween Ends and like the Friday the 13th, or like Five Nights at Freddy's. Not with a movie like this. So it begs the question, what went wrong here with Joker 2? Well, I'll tell you a big thing that killed this movie, word of mouth. Once people saw this movie in theaters, it was game over. Because this movie had some of the worst word of mouth I've ever seen for a mainstream flick. It got a D cinema score. A D cinema score. That is worse than any superhero movie out there. Some of the worst of the worst. That's worse than Fantastic. That's worse than Morbius, Madam Web, than just Dark Phoenix. So many had a better audience score than Joker 2. So audiences fucking hated this thing. And a big reason why is because of the musical aspect. It turned people off. It turned off fans because obviously the fan base Joker has, they don't watch musicals. Okay? They just don't. And so to make a musical sequel was just a big old mistake. Because they should have known that the fan base of the first movie, they weren't going to accept it. They're going to be like, what the hell is this? This isn't what I wanted to see. And apparently some people didn't know, which like I don't know how. I mean, you could just do some research and you know about it in advance. But some people didn't know, and obviously they were super pissed off. And I heard like a ton of reports of people just walking out like mid movie. I don't do that with movies. I even if it sucks ass, I like to like be a trooper and just sit for the whole thing so I can like experience it all. And that's what I did with Joker 2. And yeah, that word of mouth, that was a killer, dude. Word of mouth was horrendous. And it resulted in its stupidly front-loaded run. It only made like over 200 million worldwide on a budget of 200 million. This movie was fucking expensive, dude. Way more than the first movie. The first movie only cost like 58 million. This cost 200 million, which is insanity. So what apparently is because Joaquin Phoenix, Lady Gaga, they got some fat paydays. Joaquin got a good 20 million payday. And apparently they filmed like in LA where it would be like super expensive to do so. So that drove the budget up. And there's a lot that was going on with this movie. Apparently it didn't have like any test screenings, which explains a lot. Like that's never a good sign when you don't even have test screenings. And watching the movie, it was so weird, but not in a good way. It was a weird in the worst way imaginable. Because it started with like an animated short, which I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Start with that, and then we cut to like Arthur, like in Arkham, over what he did in the first movie. And like most of the movie either takes place in Arkham or the courthouse or in Arthur's mind, which begs the question, how did this cost so much when you're only in like 3 locations? And just a lot of people have said like this movie really undoes like a lot of the stuff that happened in the first movie. In a way, it kind of spits on the first movie, and it spits on the people who like the first movie. And that's why there was a lot of animosity surrounding this thing. I mean, the movie, they mentioned like this TV movie, which is alluding to the first movie, and how they say it was terrible and all that. And yeah, so it was that, and it's the fact that like Arthur, his character, and like Lady Gaga's Harley Quinn. Well, she's not called Harley Quinn. It's Lee. That's what she's referred to as. Like I thought the whole movie was gonna be like their like chaotic, toxic relationship, their toxic love or whatever. I thought the whole movie would be built around that, but it's not really, because like Lee is only really interested in Joker. She don't give a shit about Arthur. And then like they have like sex, and then she's pregnant, something that gets brought up once and then never again. And then Joker's like at the courthouse, with Joker makeup on, and he's just, destroying his trial because his lawyer wanted to like be like, oh, Joker and Arthur Fleck are like 2 different personalities, but Arthur decided to just represent himself, which obviously never goes well in the history of court. So he does that. And then you have like Harvey Dent there, which like I was like, oh, Harvey, you're here? Wait a minute, doesn't this kind of fuck up the timeline severely? Because he becomes Two-Face, obviously. But it's weird to have Two-Face, like all these Batman villains without like a Batman, because Batman's still a kid at this point. His dad and his mom, like Thomas and Martha, they're still alive. So it's just, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And then the end of the movie is a real fuck you to the audience, as you all probably know. I know I'm spoiling this, but you don't want to watch this movie, trust me. And the way it ends, like after all the stuff, some, I guess Joker super fans, they blow up the courthouse. They try to rescue Arthur, and Arthur's like, oh, I hate this. I don't want any of this anymore. And he runs away, goes to Lee, and she's like, oh, I don't really love you anymore because, I love Joker. I don't love Arthur. And then she dips. And then Arthur is sent back to Arkham Asylum. So literally, we're right back to square one. Because that's what people love in their movies. Movies that have no development, that just circle right back around to the beginning. And then this no-name guy you see like a few times, this no-name, asylum mate, he goes to Arthur, he like, tells him a joke, and then he stabs him multiple times, kills him, and then the dude just off screen, he paints he carves a smile to say, so the movie's telling you, oh, well, that's the real Joker. And, Arthur's is just like inspiration. And that's how it ends. And I looked at the screen, and I was just like, the fuck was that? Is honestly one of the worst endings I've seen to a movie in quite some time. It legit pissed me off. And it pissed off everybody else. Nobody liked that ending. Not to mention, I forgot to mention the musical parts. They're not really important. They have damn near nothing to do with the plot. They're just there. It's like a jukebox musical. They just use songs that already exist. And it's not good. Doesn't flow with anything. And you just want it to end. You just want it to stop. And once another one plays, you're like, oh God, here we go again. It's just, ugh. Joker 2, this movie was a mistake. A big old mistake. It never should have been made. This is obviously a big old black mark for DC and Warner Brothers. Because, they expected this movie to be a hit, as did everyone. And ended up being one of probably the biggest flop of the whole year. When it comes its box office and budget. And so, yeah, with DC, that James Gunn Superman movie, that better slap. Because DC's been on such a awful losing streak the last few years. They haven't had a real hit at the box office since The Batman back in 2022. And even before then, you have to go all the way back to I think Shazam back in 2019. So DC's, it's been rough for the brand. And yeah, so Joker 2, absolute catastrophe as a movie, as a, quality wise, box office wise. I mean, this is a movie that Todd Phillips, he successfully made a movie that appealed to nobody. It didn't appeal to Joker fans, Batman fans, DC fans, superhero fans, Lady Gaga fans, musical fans. It appealed to no one. And as a result, no one watched it. Except me. I did, unfortunately. I wish I didn't, but I was like, I'm going to see what it's like. I'm going to experience this thing. And I did, and wish I didn't. So, yeah, Joker 2. This pretty much killed October out of the gate. It cost October any shot of competing with last year. So, yeah. Oh, just Joker 2. Honestly, it's maybe the worst movie I've seen the whole year. Maybe I don't know, Madam Web, some say that's worse, but Joker 2 feels worse. A lot worse. Because Madam Web, my expectations for that were rock bottom. Joker 2, I was actually excited. And then it let me down severely. So, yeah, Joker 2, in my eyes, it's the worst movie for me. Okay, so let's move on. Well, Monster Summer, I can't really talk about it because I don't even see any numbers. So it makes me feel like the video I made on it was a waste of time. It's not the first time this has happened, but I think I predicted 500K opening weekend, 1 million. It probably made that. The numbers just aren't here. But yeah, this is a movie that just came out and no one really talked about it, and that was it. So let's move on to Whitebird. So Whitebird, A Wonder Story, whatever it's called. Yeah, this movie was supposed to come out 2 years ago. I remember there were trailers for it 2 years ago. It was supposed to come out, I think, around the time of Black Adam back in 2022. And then it just kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed. Like, a movie like this should not be delayed by 2 years. It shouldn't. Like, I know, like, obviously with COVID, a lot of movies were delayed for like a long time. Top Gun Maverick and Minions 2, they were delayed by 2 years. So I get that because, with those movies, you want to make sure the market is in a place where you can actually make a lot of money. But Whitebird, it had no reason to do that. So I don't get it. I mean, I know last year was because of strikes, writers and actors strikes, but yeah, to delay it, like it should have just came out in 2022. I don't know why they decided to just move it over and over again. It honestly that just killed the movie's potential. And when it came out, it was obvious Lionsgate just like threw their hands up in the air and said, "We give up." And they barely released wide, only like 1,000 theaters. So that should tell you that they just gave up. So my prediction, I predicted I think 1 to 2 million. I found sold like 3, 4, maybe 5 million. It hit 1.5 million, and it made like 5 million total. Its legs were bleh. And $5 million. And this is like the sequel slash prequel to Wonder. It's connected to that. And let's look at Wonder's box office just for comedic sake. Look at that. Look at that. I mean, that may be the worst gap I've ever seen between like one installment to another. Like, it's crazy. Absolutely wild to see a gap that. I mean, look at this. Like, just wow. And it was yet another failure, another L for Lionsgate because they had such a awful losing streak for like the last like 2 months from like August to October. They were pumping their movies out so fast, rapid fire, which I don't know how they thought that would be a good idea. I guess they just wanted to get rid of the movies, just get them out of the way, I guess. But yeah, this was like the last of their terrible losing streak, which was broken last weekend with Best Christmas Pageant ever. That managed to not embarrass itself and actually make a decent chunk of change. But yeah, this 2024 has been awful. So bad for Lionsgate. And next year, I mean, it will be better by comparison. Like you got like Ballerina from John Wick, and you got the Michael Jackson biopic. Those two movies should make more than all of their 2024 movies combined. So yeah, at least they got those two movies like on the horizon. But yeah, Whitebird just big old flop, a movie no one remembers, and it came out last month. So yeah, so that was the beginning of October. Very much set like put a bit of a dark cloud over the rest of the month. But thankfully, the next week we'd actually have a positive success story, real success story. But it was only one movie. The rest of these, nope, nothing. And look at all these movies. 7 movies. That's fucking ridiculous. Like, releasing that many movies at one time is never good. Because usually only one survives and the rest, like, die. And that's exactly what happened here. Same thing happened in September with Wild Robot. And it had, like, a bunch of movies opening against it. Only Wild Robot was able to have a pulse. So, same thing happened here. But let's go through all these. The Apprentice. The movie about young Donald Trump. I predicted an opening weekend of like 1 to 2 million. The final total like 3 to 4. And that's what happened. It hit like 1.6 million. Made 3.9 million. About 4 million. Its legs were not good. and it was just faded away by the time we got to by the end of the month, really. And this was like after like this movie had like a ton of publicity surrounding it. Apparently, the Trump campaign or Trump's legal team like wanted to do like I think it was like a cease and desist type thing with it because it painted because he thought, oh, this paints me in a bad light, and so the movie like thought, oh, all this controversy will create cash, and sometimes controversy can create cash. The first Joker movie is a prime example of that, but that doesn't happen all the time. Okay, you can't expect that to happen every single time a movie's surrounded by controversy. Like that's foolish. And there's the fact that, with Donald Trump, this being like one could argue like his origin story, part of his origin story at least. The people like really want to see his story like on the big screen. They see enough of him on TV every day. What he's doing with like politics. Well, now he's going to be president again. So you're going to see him like all day, every day, pretty much. So to see like a movie about him, people just didn't really care. They just didn't bother. And yeah. So yeah, The Apprentice, I'm not super surprised that it went unseen. I'm not going to talk about Average Joe because I didn't make a video on that. My Hero Academia, you're next. I predicted an opening weekend of like, I think it was like 2, 3. I don't remember. And then final total of like 4 something. Well, it hit 3 million. And it made 5 million total. It was predictably front loaded. That shouldn't surprise anyone. This is an anime movie. They tend to be front loaded. So I guess, it matched my expectations. So yay, I guess. But my expectations were real low. So it's not really impressive. But, I guess, I don't really know what else to say about this. I mean, it didn't do as well as like other My Hero Academia movies. Probably because the popularity of the series has kind of fallen compared to like a few years ago. But that tends to happen with a lot of shows and various properties. But I guess for an anime movie, it could have done worse. So, yeah. So, Nightmare Before Christmas re-release, the 20th re-release of that movie. I'm not going to talk about that because I didn't make a video on it. Piece by Piece, we'll talk about that. The Pharrell Williams Lego biopic. I predicted an opening weekend of like 3 million, final total of like 7 to 9 million, and it hit 3.8 million and it ended up making like 9.7 million on 10 million worldwide. So these numbers aren't good at all. I wasn't sure about this movie's commercial potential because it seemed like such an odd idea to have like a documentary in the form of like Lego, which I mean it is a cool idea, it's unique, but I didn't think it didn't feel very commercial, It felt very niche. And it ended up being super niche. So yeah, basically this is kind of for Pharrell Williams like super fans and no one else. Unless you want to see Lego versions of like Kendrick Lamar and Daft Punk and whatnot. But yeah, this movie it didn't pop off at all. And I wasn't super shocked, but I thought it would at least do like a little bit better. But I guess this kind of proves that Lego movies, they're just not, they're not as appealing as they once were, like back 10 years ago, like with the first movie. And I think I remember, they announced some live action Lego movies recently, and I'm just like, why? Who wants these? Like the Lego movies, they started out real good, and then they just fell off box office wise. Like the popularity plummeted by the time Lego Movie 2 released. Well, really, I think releasing Lego Batman, Lego Ninjago the same year was just the worst idea imaginable. And that's what happened. And it pretty much diluted the brand and it just killed it. So to make more Lego movies live action Lego movies at that feels really dumb. But we're apparently going to get them. So, and And now Terrifier 3 finally a success story. I've been waiting a while to get to this. So Terrifier 3. I didn't know how this was gonna do because I really didn't know it would be like a wide release until like real late. You know, and it was projected to hit like 10 million. I was like, okay, 10 million. I guess I'll go with that. But then I saw like its preview numbers and it's like opening day numbers. I was like, okay, this movie can really go some places. So I predicted like 15 to 20 million. I found told like 30 to 40 million. And it ended up opening with 18 million, almost 19 million, which I was like, wow, okay, this is great. It's great for Terrifier. I mean, if you compare it to like the last movie, Terrifier 2, which came out in 2022, that only made like 10 million total. So to see Terrifier 3 opening well, almost double that, that's fantastic. that's incredible growth right there. And yeah, its legs turned out to be like a lot better than I expected. I was kind of thinking it would be like a fan only type thing. But no, this movie had a decent amount of legs. It played all throughout October. So, yeah, and it was number one at the box office, something I never, ever would have predicted, like going into October, because this was back when I assumed Joker 2 would make money and not be a total dumpster fire. So the fact that, like, seeing it at number one was crazy. Absolutely crazy. And with its total, it's actually the highest grossing unrated movie of all time. So that's another feather in Terrifier 3's cap. And I did watch this movie. I decided it would be interesting and fun to watch this on Halloween night because I thought it would be perfect. And that's what I did. And to prepare myself, I watched Terrifier 1 and 2 because I've never seen the Terrifier movies beforehand. So I decided to watch the first two to get myself, ready, to prepare myself for what I was about to endure with Terrifier 3. And so I did. Those movies were hella nasty. But they were able to, like, get me, like, desensitized enough to where I can handle Terrifier 3. So I watched Terrifier 3, and it was predictably very fucked up. But just, a really good horror movie. I enjoyed it a lot. And yeah, I'm glad it was a hit. I'm glad people like it. And we're going to get a Terrifier 4. It was announced, which, makes sense. All the sense in the world. But yeah, Terrifier 3, it's definitely the big winner of October in my eyes. It was the one movie that really exceeded any and all expectations. And it deserved to because it's a really fun flick. Well, fun in a very sadistic, fucked up way. Because, my God, some of the images you see in this movie are just... not stuff I would want to talk about. But if you have the stomach to handle Terrifier, something like Terrifier, I think you'll enjoy Terrifier 3. And hey, it works as both a Halloween movie and a Christmas movie. I don't know too many people want to watch it as a Christmas movie. I feel like you get some frowns if you try that. But yeah, Terrifier 3, a nice win for for like a non-major studio movie. And then we got Saturday Night, the origin story of SNL. Yeah, opening weekend I predict like 3 to 4 million, final total of like 10 maybe. And yeah, it did not pop off at all. It made like 3.4 million opening weekend. Its legs were not good, and it didn't even make 10 million total. So that sucks. That's real, just not good, especially since it cost like 30 million, I think. So yeah, total flop. And this weekend, October 11th, with like this, Apprentice, and Piece by Piece all bombing, it made people go, is this it for like adult-centric like flicks, for like award-centric flicks? Is it over? Is it dead? Do people not care about these movies? Do they not want to see them in theaters? That was like the big thing that was going around that weekend. But the next weekend proved that, people, there is an audience for these. The audience just didn't bother with, the three movies I already mentioned. So, that was October 11th. We had one real hit with Terrifier 3, and the rest we just don't talk about. So, October 18th, more movies. Alright, let's go through them. Exhibiting Forgiveness. I predicted opening weekend of I think less than 500K, a total not even $1 million. It made 276K. It ceased to exist the following weekend. I have nothing really to say. It's just, yeah, I just have nothing to say. So then we got Goodrich, starred, Michael Keaton. I predicted an opening weekend. I think it was maybe $1 million or less. Maybe. I don't remember at all. I think it was, I think maybe 500K to $1 million. Final sold 2 million. I think, I don't know. It only made 630K. Dropped off the face of the earth after that. And only made 1.3 mil. So, I thought this would at least do a little better. You think after Beetlejuice, that would give this movie a bit of a boost, but nope. The movie went unseen. And we don't have to talk about it ever again. Hocus Pocus re-release. I didn't cover it because I literally already made a video on it last year. And I feel like doing it again would be a waste of time. Then we got Rumors. Another movie that I knew would not last long in theaters. I predicted an opening weekend of less than 500K, less than $1 million. What I usually do for movies like these. Only opened with 311K. Ceased to exist the following week. And we move on. Smile 2, a movie that people actually wanted to watch. A movie I did watch and I did enjoy quite a bit. So, Smile 2. I predicted an open... Well, actually, before, I really thought this would open with 30-something mil. I was hoping it would, because I thought this would be one of those sequels that would do a lot better than the original, at least a little bit better. Because the first Smiles... That first movie's story is real interesting, because it wasn't meant to be in theaters at all. It's supposed to be a Paramount Plus movie. But then Paramount looked at test screenings and were like, you know what? We might make some money here. We might have something. So they put it in theaters, had a solid opening weekend, had abnormally good legs for a horror movie. It made over 100 million, I think over 200 million worldwide. Obviously, you want to make more, so here we are with Smile 2. So I thought there would be a boost from the first movie to the second movie, because the first movie had really good word of mouth. That didn't really happen here, to my surprise. So I ended up predicting 20 to 25 million opening weekend, a final total of 50 to 60 mil. It hit 23 million. Its legs, second weekend was, but its legs after that been pretty good. And now it has made 63 million domestically, 126 million worldwide. On budget, I think it was 28 million. Doesn't say it here, but I think it was 28 mil. It's not bad. But I just expected better. So I don't really know what went wrong here, why it didn't do as well as it should have, in my eyes. Maybe it was Terrifier 3. Maybe that ate into the movie's audience. That's definitely a possibility. Because the movie's really good. I really liked it a lot. The movie was a real mindfuck at times. Where you don't know, what's real and what's Sky is what she sees is either a vision, or if it's real, what's actually going on. It's hard to tell at times. And it was definitely a more confident movie compared to the first one in terms of scale and everything. And I just the idea of a horror movie surrounding a pop star, because you don't see that often ever. So I thought it was really cool. And I really liked Smile 2. I would highly recommend it. But I thought it would do better, but its box office as is, it's fine. It's just fine. It's a lot better than a lot of horror movies that have come out this year. I'll tell you that. Like this and Terrifier 3. So yeah, Smile 2, I was hoping it would do better, but it just did okay in the end. And then we got We Live in Time. So I predicted an opening weekend, I think it was like 4 to 5 million final total. I think it was like, I said 15 to 20. And well, it hit 4 million in like under 1,000 theaters. I was like, okay, this movie might have some momentum on its side. Then it expanded, didn't expand that far after that. But its legs have been like fine, I guess. It's made over 23 million, which like just demolishes all the October 11th movies like quite a bit. Proving that that audience, like that, I guess, art house, audience, like they're there. They will show up, but they'll only show up when they see a movie that is actually interesting. So, We Live in Time was, interesting to a lot of people, and a lot of people, and a decent amount of people did watch it. So, for A24, standards, it did quite all right for them as well. And yeah, We Live in Time, it managed to make a little bit of money for itself. It wasn't a total embarrassment like most of the movies that came out in October. So that was October 18th. And then we end with October 25th. So first we have Conclave. I predicted an open weekend of like 5 to 6 million, maybe. Yeah. And a final total of like 15 to 20. And the movie is actually exceeding my expectations a little bit. It opened with like 6.6 million. And its legs have been like really good. Really good. I mean, 24%, 18% low key spectacular. And now it's made over 24 million. And I think its budget was like close to like 20. So it'll end up doing like moderate. It'll do moderately well. It'll probably definitely make more of its money once it hits like PVOD and streaming and all that. Then it'll break even. But considering like compared to like expectations, because like I didn't think this movie was going to make anything. It's not bad. Not bad, especially compared to like, again, other adult centric movies that came out in October. So yeah, Conclave managed to not embarrass itself. So there's that. And then, well, Your Monster, I didn't cover it, so I might as well talk about it because I didn't. Well, it's wide release. I didn't know it was a wide release, so I just didn't say anything. And it only made like 500K opening weekend and 700K total, so just no reason to really talk about it. Venom 3, Venom the Last Dance. Now we gotta talk about this. Now with this, I thought it would do well. The first two Venom movies did really well, despite not being all that good, quality-wise. Audiences liked them, generally. The first Venom movie was one of the biggest movies of 2018, made over 800 million, which was shocking, to say the least. And Venom 2 didn't do quite as well, mainly because of, when it released. And because, the first Venom had China that really boost those numbers. Venom 2 didn't have China, which explains like the big old drop off. But still, 500 million, that's still a nice amount of money. So obviously Sony will want to make another one. Venom 3, The Last Dance, the final chapter, and whatnot. So, because the first two Venom movies did really well in October, the first Venom, as I can show you here, that opened with 80 million, which broke the record for October when it released. That record would be broken a year later with Joker. And then Venom Let There Be Carnage opened bigger with 90 million. So I thought Venom The Last Dance might open around that level. Maybe. No. That's not what happened at all. I thought it'll open, so I decided to temper my expectations. Maybe it'll open like 70 million or something. Then I saw early numbers and I was like, oh God, what's going on? So I ended up predicting like 50 to 55 million, final total of like 120. and it opened like 51 million. I was like, oof, yikes. That's such a huge drop off from the first two movies. So, yeah, and a big reason for that is because when it released, the World Series was like happening at the same time. And obviously, a lot of attention was on that. And a lot of people said that had a negative impact. But I like to believe it's because, you know, well, obviously, superhero movies, they've had it rough in 2024. We haven't had too many release, actually, but only one has been a real hit. And that one is Deadpool and Wolverine, making 1.3 billion and being the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time, yada, yada, yada. But besides that, it's been terrible. Real terrible. Madam Web, bomb. Joker 2, bomb. Um, what else? Is that it? Yeah, I think that's it. Like, damn. I guess, does The Crow count? If it does, bomb. Bomb for that too. So, the superhero movies have had it rough. And then with Venom 3, when I saw it, I watched it, and when it was over, I was just like, well, that was a movie. That was my honest to God thoughts. Because it was a movie that I knew I would not remember much of, like, in like a month. And it was just like, the movie was just unremarkable. I mean, Tom Hardy and Venom, Eddie and Venom, like they were the highlight of the movie per usual. They made the movie watchable. Everything else, I was bored shitless. I did not care. And like the main villain, well, kind of the main villain, you don't really see him much. Null, he's supposed to be like this fan favorite, but most people just didn't really care. Or like when they saw him, they felt like they're just like, what are you doing? Like, he doesn't really do anything. He's like in this whole another world with all these symbiotes, and he basically uses like these symbiote like monsters or whatnot to just do his dirty work, and people were just like, what the hell? We wanted to see Null. Like, it was just ugh. It was just such a bleh movie. Better than Joker 2. I will say that all day. It's a much better experience than Joker 2, but it still wasn't great. And yeah, it's just ugh. But what's weird is that this movie's legs have been way better than I anticipated, because it's been number one for 3 weeks straight. It fell less than 50% second weekend, and I was floored. I was just like, what the hell? That's not right. And it fell 39% week 3. So now it's made 120 million, so it's surpassed my final expectations. So I guess that's good. I mean, although compared to the other two Venom movies, it's still a big drop off. But internationally, it's saved. The international box office is saving this movie's ass because it costs like 110 million. It's made like 400 million, so it will break even. It will ultimately make a profit, so Sony won't lose any money. But deep down, Sony was hoping more from this. They were hoping to make a couple more dollars. And when it comes to the next Spider-Man-less Spider-Man universe movie, Kraven the Hunter next month, I don't. My expectations for that are rock bottom too. I don't think that's gonna make any money because who would want to watch that? I mean, I will, because I've decided, I'm all in on these Sony movies. These what are they called? What's the official name? SMU movies. If no one's gonna watch them, then I will. I'll be there against my better judgment. But yeah, Venom 3, I mean, technically it was the big winner of October, but I don't really see it as a winner box office wise. Certainly not quality wise. And but I'll give the movie this. They did kill off Venom. Like, they did do that. So like, kudos for not doing a stupid little like bait and switch. So, no more Eddie and Brock. Tom Hardy's like done with these movies. I mean, unless he were to cross over with like a Tom Holland Spider-Man. And since that didn't happen, well, He's just done. So yeah, and I forgot to mention, I remember the trailer for this released, and obviously the end of No Way Home. You know, Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock. He's sent over to the MCU, and then he's sent back to his world, and you see like part of the symbiote is like still there, and people are like, "Ooh, we're gonna get Black Suit Tom Holland. Is it gonna happen?" And then the first trailer for this, it made it feel like they just said, "Nope, fuck you, you're not getting that," and people were pissed. Turns out, the bars, in like the trailer for Venom 3 and the end of No Way Home, they're different bars. They just look the same. So, Black Suit Tom Holland is still a possibility. It's we'll see what happens with Spider-Man 4 come 2026. But yeah, but Venom 3, it was a movie I watched, and that's going to be its legacy. So, yeah. So that was October. Again, not a good month. I mean, I saw some good flicks. Terrifier 3 and Smile 2. And I did watch Transformers 1 in October, a few weeks after it released. That was also really good. But yeah, October was just a bad month. It put 2024 in an even deeper hole. And now we're in November. It's not been good so far. The first weekend of November, waste of time. Second weekend of November. I mean, best Christmas pageant ever, and Heretic have done okay. Red 1 is looking like a bust right now, unless those Christmas legs kick in. But, next week we got Gladiator 2 and Wicked, and then we got Moana 2. Those three movies might help the whole month. It might save the month from catastrophe and actually give the box office some much needed like blockbusters. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, like 2024, like October, like fall as a whole, really, it was a mixed bag, real mixed bag, because we started out so strong with Beetlejuice, and then everything just fell apart afterwards. I mean, you had some hits here and there, but yeah, it was just a month to forget, a month to never think about ever again. And that was October. So that's it. That's all. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, turn on notifications, share the whole drill. We'll check out more videos like this. I got playlists on the homepage, all previous recap videos I made on the channel. My November recap will be in early-ish December, probably second week of December. So stay tuned for that. But if you want to watch any of the past recap videos I made on the channel for this year or the past few years, you can go right ahead. There's also box office predictions where I predict box office for movies. Every movie here that I covered, I made a prediction video for. So if you want to watch my prediction videos for any of those movies, you can go right ahead. There's also the canceled series, 250 episodes, all movies that were supposed to come out but didn't. You want to binge that series, watch it all, go right ahead. And yeah, that's it. That's all. I am out. Goodbye.